Hi there smart monks and welcome to another video. In this video I'm going to be teaching you how to multiply and divide algebraic expressions. Alright, so please be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you'd like a worksheet to practice the work that was covered in this video, you can find that on my website. Right, so without further ado, let's jump into the video. Alright, so this is your lesson on algebra where I will be teaching you how to multiply and divide algebraic expressions. Okay, so let's start with multiplication. So the method that I teach for both multiplication and division is multiplying or dividing sign, number, and letter in that order, and it will make this so much easier for you. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say we get this question, right? This is a multiplication. Each of this is being multiplied with each other. So the first thing we would do is we would look and multiply the signs. So this is a positive, this is a positive, this is a negative. So positive times a positive is a positive, and then that positive times a negative is a negative. So I have now multiplied the signs. Now I move over to the numbers. 2, and here's a 1, and there's a 5. So 2 times 1 times 5 is 10. I've multiplied the numbers. Right, then we look at the variables, and we've got 1x here, we've got 1x here, and we've got 2x's here. When we multiply, we add all the powers together. So this is 1 plus 2 will give me x to the power of 4. And so we've multiplied the sign, we've multiplied the numbers, we've multiplied the letters. And so our answer for this expression is negative 10 x to the power of 4. Let's look at the next question. In this case, we've got one term multiplied by two terms, right? So we need to multiply this one by using the distributive law by each term inside. So let me show you. So with this arrow, we're going to say 4x times 5x squared, and we're going to, whenever we multiply, follow the sign, number, letter method. So sign, so positive times a positive is a positive, and 4 times 5 is 20. So take note, when it's negative, we have to put in the negative, but if it's positive, we don't have to add the positive here. And then we go, so that is the sign and the number, and then the letter, we've got 3 x's, here's 1 and here's 2, so that gives me 3. Right, so we've now multiplied this by the first term. Now let's move to the next one. Positive times negative is negative, 4 times 2 is 8. Negative 8, and then I've got 2 x's here, so that gives me x to the power of 2. Okay, so in this case now I've applied the sign, number, letter method for each arrow. Right, number 3, again we've got one term multiplied by 3 terms, so again we have to take this one term and multiply it by each of the terms inside the bracket using the sign, number, letter method. So let's start. Here we've got negative times positive is a negative, and 8 times 5 is 40, so it's negative 40. If I look at the variables, I've got 2 x's there and 1 x, which will give me 3 x's, and then I've got 1 y. Moving to the next arrow. Negative times negative is positive, 8 times 2 is 16, so it's positive 16, and then I've got 2 x's and 1 y. The last one, I've got negative times positive, which is negative. Right, and 8 times 5 is negative 40, and then 5 doesn't have any variables, only a negative 8xy, so it will only be the xy that we have there. Okay, remember xy also means x times y when we place it next to each other like this. Okay, last one. So if we look at this now, we've got a plus that's outside the bracket. So the plus outside the bracket actually separates these terms. So here I've actually got two terms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the distributive law to find the answer to the first term, and then do the same for the second term, and then add those two answers together. So this is what it's going to look like. Sign, number, letter again, which will give me 2, because it's 2 times 1, and then I've got 2 x's. Then I move to the next arrow. I've got 2 times 5, which is 10. And then I've got an x and a y. So this is now the answer to the first term. Now I move to the second term. I've again got 2x times x, which will give me 2x squared. And then positive times negative is negative, and that will give me negative 8, and then xy. Okay, and then if I look at this, I add like terms, so I've got 2x squared there and 2x squared there, which will give me 4x squared, and then I've got 8xy, 10xy minus 8xy, which will give me positive 2xy. These like terms, I have a video on how to approach those. So if you don't understand it here, don't worry too much. I do cover it in one entire video. Okay, so let's just refresh. Whenever we have multiplication, we follow the method sign, number, letter, right? If we've got one term in front of a bracket that's got multiple terms, we have to take that term and multiply it by each of the terms inside that bracket, following the method sign, number, letter for each calculation. Right? And then sometimes we'll get a case where we've got brackets and we've got pluses and minuses outside the bracket. So that means that the terms are being separated. So you have to find the answer for each of them individually and then add or subtract or do the final calculation at the end. Okay. Now let's look at division. Again, we're following the same sign, number, letter. Right, so here we've got a negative divided by a negative gives us a positive. 16 divided by 2 gives us 8. And then when we're dealing with powers now, we will always take, remember when we were multiplying, we added the powers of the variables. Now in this case, when we divide, we are subtracting the bottom one from the top one. So I've got 5 minus 2 will give me x to the power of 3. And then 4 minus 2 will give me y to the power of 2. Okay, so again, we did the sign, which is negative divided by negative gives us a positive. Then we did number, 16 divided by 2 gives me 8. And then I've got the variables where I take the top power and subtract the bottom one's power. So I've got 5 minus 2 gives me the 3, and 4 minus 2 gives me the 2. So the answer of this then is negative 8, x to the power of 3, y to the power of 2. Okay. But what if we have multiple terms? So here we've got 2 terms divided by 1 term. And how we will do that is we are going to separate the 2 terms by making each of them divided by the denominator. So this is what it will look like. I'm taking this one and dividing it by x. And then I'm taking that sign and saying this one and dividing it by x. So now I'm going to treat each of this with sign, number, letter, and then get the answer. So watch this. So this divided by this is negative divided by positive is a negative. 15 divided by 1 is 15, and then x to the power of 3 divided by x, remember I subtract the powers, gives me x to the power of 2. The same with here, with this one. I've got positive divided by positive is a positive. 5 divided by 1 is 5, and then x2 minus x1 gives me x1 there. And this is then the answer of this question. Okay, so when we've got a division and we've got multiple terms in the numerator, you then separate them, taking each term and dividing it by the denominator. Right, let's try another one like that. So in this case, again, we've got 2 terms and we've got now another a 2x squared in the denominator. Right, so again, I take each term and I divide it by the numerator. So look at this. This is the negative 16x3 divided by the 2x squared, and this is the 4x squared divided by the 2x squared here. So I've split this up. Okay, so now I deal with them individually by following the sign, number, letter method. Right, so negative divided by negative is, a negative divided by positive is a negative. 16 divided by 2 is 8, and x3 divided by x2 is x1. And then in this case, we've got 4 divided by 2 gives me the 2. And take note, I've got x to the power of 2 here and x to the power of 2 there, which essentially cancel each other out. And so I'm just left with the 2. Okay. And that is how we deal with division. So I'm now going to ask you to pause this video and to attempt these 6 questions to see how well you've understood this. And then when you've done doing these questions, you can unpause the video and I'll work through the answers with you. Right, so pause the video now. Okay, so hopefully that went well and that you feel confident about what you did. So let's work through the answers. Remember, if you don't get all of them correct, that's fine, as long as you are able to identify where you are making your mistakes, because ultimately you want to make sure that each time you work through things that you are doing it accurately. And so if you find out where you're making your mistakes, you can make sure that you don't make them again. Okay, so let's have a look here. Number one, we've got a negative 12 times positive 8, and both of them have x's. So negative 12 times 8 is negative 96, and we've got two x's there. Right, number two, the answer was 50x squared. Right, I've got two x's, and negative times negative is positive 10, and then that 10 times 5 is positive 50. In the next one, we had to multiply using the arrow, right? So your answer would have been 10x squared minus 25x. Okay, number 4, you will then have multiplied this. Remember, this is now two terms, so you would have solved them separately, right? So this will give you x squared minus 3x for the first bracket, and then the next term is negative x would give you this negative x squared minus 8x. Okay, and then we will do like terms. We notice that 1x squared minus another x squared is 0x squared. So then we have negative 3 minus negative 8, which is negative 11. Because this is 0, we end up just with negative 11x. Again, this is where we deal with like terms. So if you didn't quite get this right, it's fine. I do have a video on like terms. Okay, let's look at the division question. So here I've got positive divided by negative is negative, 21 divided by 7 is 3, and then x4 divided by x2 will give me the x2 over there. Okay, then the last question, remember you have to take each term and divide it by 5, and your answer would have then been 4x squared plus 3x to the power of 3 minus 5. Alright, and that is your video on multiplying and dividing with algebra. Alright, so there's that video. Hopefully you find it helpful and that you are confident about multiplying and dividing algebraic expressions. Right, remember you can find a worksheet to practice this work on my website, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys!